The hidden reason anxious-avoidant chemistry feels so intense is because it's not just romance, it's nervous system fireworks, and if you don't understand that, you'll keep mistaking emotional adrenaline for emotional safety. This dynamic can feel like destiny because it activates your deepest attachment wounds and your deepest fantasies at the same time. The anxious partner often feels a powerful spark because the avoidance distance creates mystery, uncertainty, and high emotional stakes. The avoidant doesn't fully give access, and that partial availability can make the anxious heart work harder, invest faster, and attach more intensely. Meanwhile, the avoidant can feel drawn to the anxious partner's warmth, devotion, and emotional clarity because it offers something their system secretly craves, connection without them having to initiate much emotional risk at first. So the beginning can feel electric. You feel seen, desired, chosen in flashes. You feel like when it's good, it's unbelievable, and that's exactly why it becomes addictive. Because intensity is a powerful trick of the brain. When love arrives in bursts and disappears without warning, your nervous system gets hooked on the relief of reunion. The anxious partner doesn't just miss the avoidant, they crave the re-regulation that happens when the avoidant returns. That rush of, finally, we're okay again, can feel like proof of a deep bond, but it's often proof of a deep cycle. The avoidant might also feel this pull in a different way. The anxious partner's pursuit can initially feel flattering and stabilizing. It reassures them they matter without requiring them to fully surrender control, so both people can feel a high that is real in the moment but unstable over time. This is why the dynamic can feel like a soulmate story in the early chapters. You'll hear yourself saying things like, "I've never felt this kind of connection," or "No one has ever made me feel this alive," or "When we're good, we're perfect." But the painful truth is that feeling alive is not always the same as being safe. Sometimes feeling alive is your nervous system reliving an old pattern in a new face. The anxious partner often confuses emotional uncertainty with emotional depth. The avoidant often confuses emotional intensity with emotional risk. So both people keep dancing in a bond that feels intense enough to justify the pain. And that's the trap. Because this dynamic doesn't burn you out in one dramatic moment. It wears you down slowly. The anxious partner begins to monitor text, tone, response time, the smallest shifts in energy. The avoidant begins to feel pressured by expectations they didn't clearly agree to but can sense growing around them. The anxious partner pushes for reassurance to calm their fear of abandonment. The avoidant pulls back to calm their fear of engulfment. And every time this happens, the relationship collects a new piece of evidence that closeness leads to chaos. The anxious partner starts thinking, "If I love harder, we'll be stable." The avoidant starts thinking, "If I create more space, I'll be okay." But love doesn't become secure through escalation or withdrawal. It becomes secure through structure. And this is where people misread the intensity as a sign they should fight more, try more, wait longer, explain better. They double down on the very behaviors that keep the cycle alive. You can spot the difference between intensity and safety by how your body feels over time. Intensity creates spikes. Safety creates steadiness. Intensity makes you feel euphoric one day and panic the next. Safety makes you feel calm even when you're not together. Intensity makes you feel like the relationship is always on the edge of becoming everything you want. Safety makes you feel like you already know where you stand. If your heart is constantly waiting for proof, that's not bonding in a healthy way. That's attachment anxiety being fed by inconsistency. This is why this first keynote matters so much for your viewer retention too, because it reframes everything. It tells your audience that they're not crazy for feeling the pull. The pull is real. But it also tells them they're not weak for feeling stuck. The dynamic is designed to be sticky, because it keeps the anxious system hungry and the avoidant system in control of pacing. That's a recipe for obsession disguised as love. And the breakthrough is this: you can honor the connection you felt without letting that connection become the argument against your peace. You can say, "Yes, this was intense," and also say, "Intensity is not my standard for love anymore," because the goal isn't to erase chemistry. The goal is to stop letting chemistry override your emotional safety requirements. Once your audience understands that the anxious-avoidant spark is often a nervous system match before it is a long-term compatibility match, they start seeing the rest of the solution with new eyes. They stop asking, "How do I make them stop pulling away?" and start asking, "How do we build a system that makes both of us feel safe?" And that question is the doorway out of the push-pull and into a relationship that finally feels like love you can breathe inside. It's not villain versus victim. That's the most freeing truth you can give your heart in an anxious-avoidant relationship. Because the moment you label one person, the problem, you miss the real engine of the cycle. This dynamic is two nervous systems trying to survive intimacy in opposite ways, and both are reacting from fear, not from a lack of love. The anxious system is terrified of being left. The avoidant system is terrified of being consumed. And when those two fears collide, both people start behaving in ways that unintentionally confirm each other's worst beliefs. The anxious partner often thinks, if I can just get closer, we'll be okay. So they reach out more. They ask for reassurance. They try to talk things through right when they feel distance. They explain their feelings in detail. They want clarity now because uncertainty feels physically threatening. The anxious heart doesn't crave drama. It craves stability. But when the anxious partner gets triggered, they can accidentally turn love into urgency. Their nervous system starts shouting, "Fix this right now," because a delay feels like danger. The avoidant partner experiences that urgency very differently. Their system hears, "I'm about to lose myself," and that's when they withdraw. Not always because they don't care, but because their body needs distance to regulate. They might go quiet to calm down. They might delay responses. They might become logical when emotions rise. They might shut the door on the conversation just when the anxious partner is begging for connection. The avoidant nervous system doesn't crave abandonment either. It craves breathing room. But when the avoidant gets triggered, they can accidentally turn love into disappearance. So the cycle becomes painfully predictable. The anxious partner pushes when they feel unsafe. The avoidant partner pulls away when they feel pressured. The anxious partner sees the withdrawal and interprets it as disinterest or rejection. The avoidant partner sees the pursuit and interprets it as control or suffocation. And both end up stuck in a loop that feels personal even though it's physiological. This is why blame doesn't heal this dynamic, skills do. Because neither person is bad. But both are running old survival programs. The anxious partner may have learned that love is uncertain and must be secured by effort. The avoidant partner may have learned that love is overwhelming and must be survived by distance. These programs were built long before this relationship. And now two hearts are trying to love each other, while their nervous systems are arguing about what love is supposed to feel like. The tragedy is that both people are trying to protect the relationship in the way they know how. The anxious partner pursues because they're fighting for connection. The avoidant partner retreats because they're fighting to keep the relationship from becoming emotionally unmanageable. The anxious partner is not trying to control, they're trying to feel safe. The avoidant partner is not trying to punish, they're trying to regulate. But intention doesn't erase impact. And the impact is that both people can start feeling lonely in the same room. This is also why the relationship can feel incredibly loving one week and painfully unstable the next. When the avoidant feels free enough, they can be warm and present. When the anxious feels reassured enough, they can be calm and generous. But the moment stress rises or closeness deepens quickly, both systems revert. The anxious partner starts reaching for certainty. The avoidant partner starts reaching for space. And no one is wrong for needing what they need. The pain comes from the way those needs are expressed without structure. So if you're the anxious partner, the breakthrough is not to need less love. The breakthrough is to learn how to ask for reassurance without turning it into panic, to build self-soothing skills so your partner isn't your only oxygen, to recognize that space does not automatically equal abandonment. You deserve reassurance, yes, but you also deserve the power to calm your body without waiting for someone else to prove your worth. And if you're the avoidant partner, the breakthrough is not to stop needing space. The breakthrough is to learn how to take space without making your partner feel disposable, to communicate timeouts with clarity, to offer small, consistent reassurance even while you're overwhelmed, to understand that your partner's need for closeness is not a trap, it's a request for safety. You deserve autonomy, yes, but you also owe clarity if you want trust to survive. This is where the relationship either rises or repeats history, because a secure bond is not built by two people feeling perfect all the time. It's built by two people agreeing to treat each other's triggers as a shared problem, not a character flaw. It's built by saying, we're not enemies. Our nervous systems are reacting. Let's slow this down and create a better way to repair. So when you stop making this dynamic about who's right and start making it about what's safe, you unlock the real solution. Not more intensity, not more chasing, not more disappearing, but a new emotional language where closeness is offered with steadiness and space is given with reassurance, where both people stop proving fears and start proving care. The mistake that keeps the pull alive is simple but brutal. You demand the exact thing your partner cannot give in the exact moment their nervous system is least capable of giving it. The anxious partner demands closeness while the avoidant is activated. The avoidant partner demands calm while the anxious is activated. And both demands make perfect sense from the inside of your own fear. but from the outside of the relationship. That pattern is like pouring fire on fire and hoping it turns into water. When the anxious nervous system is triggered, it doesn't feel like, "I'm a little insecure." It feels like danger. It feels like the ground is missing. It feels like losing your person could mean losing your emotional stability. So your body reaches for the fastest route to safety: contact, reassurance, answers now. That's why you text more, talk more, explain more, and ask the question that is really a plea in disguise: are we okay? Your heart isn't trying to be dramatic, it's trying to survive uncertainty. But when the avoidant nervous system is triggered, it doesn't feel like, "I just need a minute." It feels like being cornered by emotional weight. It feels like expectations piling up faster than they can process. It feels like a loss of autonomy, a loss of air. So their body reaches for the fastest road to safety: distance, silence, postponement. They don't withdraw because they enjoy hurting you. They withdraw because their nervous system believes closeness in that moment equals overwhelm. So here's the collision. The anxious partner sees the withdrawal and panics harder. "If I don't get reassurance now, I'm losing this." The avoidant partner sees the pursuit and shuts down harder. "If I don't create space now, I'm going to drown." And both of you, without meaning to, become the trigger for each other's worst fear. This is why demanding closeness during avoidant activation is a losing strategy. You are essentially asking a nervous system that is screaming, "Too much," to give you more, and the more you push, the more their body hears that intimacy with you means pressure. That story becomes a future fear that makes the next conflict even worse. The avoidant begins to associate your need with danger, not because your need is wrong, but because the timing becomes wrong. The same is true in the other direction. Demanding calm from an anxious partner during panic is like telling someone to relax while their mind is in emergency mode. The anxious system isn't choosing intensity in that moment, it's trapped in it. So when you say, "You're overreacting, you're too much, just be chill," what they truly hear is your need for safety is a burden. That doesn't calm them, it escalates them, because shame is not a regulator. Shame is gasoline. The deeper problem is that both sides think the relationship is being fixed in the moment of activation, when the truth is the opposite. The relationship is either being protected or damaged in those moments based on how you handle the nervous system wave. You cannot solve a safety crisis during a safety crisis. You can only create a structure that helps you return to safety first. This is why the most healing couples adopt one mature rule: regulate first, resolve second. That rule changes everything because it gives both nervous systems an honorable path forward. The anxious partner gets the promise of return. The avoidant partner gets the permission to breathe, and neither person has to become the villain just because they were triggered. So what does that look like in real life? It looks like an avoidant learning to say, "I'm activated, I need 30 minutes, and I will come back at 7:30, not a vague later, not a disappearing act, a clear time and a clear return. That one sentence is medicine to an anxious nervous system because it transforms space into predictable space. The anxious system can tolerate space far better than it can tolerate uncertainty disguised as space. And it looks like an anxious partner learning to say, "I'm feeling scared, I need reassurance, can we talk at 7:30 when you're ready?" That sentence does two powerful things. It names the truth without flooding the moment, and it respects the avoidant's need for regulation without abandoning the anxious need for connection. This keynote is about timing as an act of love. The wrong timing can make healthy needs look like pressure. The right timing can make difficult needs feel safe to meet. It's not that the anxious partner should need less. It's not that the avoidant partner should need no space. It's that both needs require a structure that protects the relationship from the heat of activation. Because the push-pull isn't a love problem. It's a regulation problem. Your love may be real. Your intentions may be good. Your chemistry may be undeniable. But without nervous system skill, love becomes a tug-of-war between fears. So the moment you stop demanding closeness during shutdown and stop demanding calm during panic, you don't weaken the relationship, you finally give it a chance to breathe. You stop fighting the symptom and start healing the system. And that is where the cycle starts to break, not through more emotion, not through more distance, but through the mature commitment to regulate first and reconnect with clarity after both hearts are back online. The game-changing repair protocol is the one thing most anxious, avoidant couples never build, and without it, every conflict becomes a coin toss. Will this turn into closeness or distance? Will this be repaired or silently punished? Will this be a conversation or a disappearance? That uncertainty is what keeps the push-pull violent on the nervous system, even when two people genuinely love each other. Here's the truth. The anxious partner doesn't panic because the avoidant needs space. The anxious partner panics because space is unpredictable. Because "I need time" too often turns into ghosting. because silence too often becomes punishment, because later has no return time, and the anxious nervous system interprets that as danger. And on the other side, the avoidant partner doesn't deactivate because the anxious partner has needs. They deactivate because those needs arrive in an emotionally urgent wave while their body is already overloaded. The avoidant system doesn't hear a request. It hears a demand for immediate emotional performance. It hears the fear of being trapped in an argument they can't win or a closeness they can't sustain in that moment. So both people end up stuck in a terrible equation. The anxious partner escalates to prevent being abandoned. The avoidant partner retreats to prevent being engulfed. And the relationship becomes a place where each person's self-protection triggers the other person's terror. A repair protocol is the antidote. A repair protocol is not just a technique. It's an agreement that says, we're not going to let our nervous systems drive this car off a cliff. It's your emotional emergency plan. And the core of it is simple timeouts with guaranteed return times. Not vague distance, not disappearing, not cold silence, predictable space. Because predictable space transforms everything. It turns the avoidance need for breathing room into something the anxious partner can survive. It turns the anxious partner's need for connection into something the avoidant partner can approach without panic. It creates a bridge where there used to be a chase and a shutdown. Here is what this looks like in real life. The avoidant partner learns to say, I'm activated. I want to resolve this. I need 30 minutes. I will come back at 70:30. That sentence is not small, it's revolutionary. Because it does three things at once. It names activation, it communicates care, and it puts a time boundary around the space. It does not leave the anxious partner locked in a spiral. It doesn't turn space into abandonment. It turns space into a temporary regulation tool inside a committed relationship. And the anxious partner learns to respond with something equally powerful. Okay, I'm feeling scared. I will take that time to calm down too. I want to talk at 70:30. This response is not passive. It is leadership. It shows the anxious system is learning to regulate internally instead of requiring immediate reassurance to survive. It also signals respect for the avoidance capacity. It prevents the panic texts, the protest behaviors, the emotional flooding that often turns a time out into a battlefield. But the real magic of this protocol is not the words. It's the trust it rebuilds. Because every time the avoidant actually returns at the promised time, they heal a deep anxious wound. They are teaching the anxious nervous system a new truth. Space does not mean loss. They are rebuilding reliability not through grand declarations, but through simple follow-through. And every time the anxious partner actually pauses without chasing during that time out, they heal a deep avoidant wound. They are teaching the avoidant nervous system a new truth. Your need for regulation will not be punished. Your boundaries will not be turned into control battles. Your space can exist inside love. This is how the relationship stops feeling like a trap to both sides. Now there are rules that make this protocol work. The time out must be agreed on when you are calm, not invented mid-chaos. The return time must be specific, not emotional. The return must be honored like a sacred promise. Because if a time out becomes an excuse to disappear, you've just re-traumatized the anxious partner. And if a time out becomes a battlefield where the anxious partner punishes the avoidant for needing space, you've just confirmed the avoidant's belief that closeness equals conflict. So the protocol is strict because it is protective. It says, we are not using space as a weapon. We are not using urgency as a weapon. We are using structure as love. And this is what mature love looks like. It doesn't pretend triggers don't exist. It doesn't shame fear. It creates a system that safely carries fear back to connection. Because the push-pull ends when both people stop trying to win the moment and start protecting the bond. The anxious partner learns that reassurance can be scheduled without being denied. The avoidant partner learns that space can be communicated without being cruel. And both learn that in a secure relationship, repair is not an emotional lottery. Repair is a skill you practice until your nervous systems start trusting each other again. This protocol is not cold, it is compassionate. It is two people deciding that love should not require panic to stay alive. It is two people choosing predictability over chaos. It is two people building the kind of safety that makes both closeness and freedom possible in the same relationship. The fastest way to destroy an anxious, avoidant relationship isn't a big betrayal. It's the small daily protest behaviors that poison safety. Because when the anxious partner feels fear, they often protest with intensity, over texting, interrogating, threatening to leave, demanding immediate reassurance. And when the avoidant partner feels fear, they often protest with disappearance, stonewalling, sarcasm, emotional shutdown, silent punishment. Both people are trying to protect themselves, but the way they do it teaches the relationship one brutal lesson. Love is unsafe here. And this is why the fifth keynote matters so much. You don't fix push-pull by loving harder. You fix it by changing the language of fear. You replace protest with direct bids. You stop using emergency behaviors to communicate normal human needs, because protest is not a need, it's a strategy. And strategies create war, bids create repair. Let's be honest about what protest looks like. The anxious partner doesn't wake up wanting to spam messages or demand proof. They do it because silence feels like abandonment. They do it because a vague later feels like a cliff edge. So they push because they're terrified. But the avoidant partner experiences that push as pressure, as emotional captivity, as the fear that anything they say will be used against them. So they retreat. They shut down. They become cold because cold feels safer than failing you emotionally. Now the avoidant protest looks calm, but it's not calm for the relationship. It's a way to regain control of internal overwhelm by removing emotional contact altogether. And for the anxious partner, this is like being locked outside the house in a storm. Their system doesn't just get hurt, it goes into survival mode, so they escalate. The avoidant sees escalation and withdraws further. That's how a loving couple becomes two frightened people pulling their own relationship apart. A direct bid interrupts this chain because it gives fear a clean voice. A direct bid doesn't blame, it doesn't accuse, it doesn't threaten. It names what you feel and what you need in one simple, respectful sentence. And yes, it sounds almost too simple to be revolutionary, but it is. Because the nervous system doesn't need poetry to calm down, it needs clarity. For the anxious partner, a direct bid can sound like, I'm feeling anxious right now, and I need some reassurance. Or my mind is spiraling, can you tell me we're okay and when we can talk? Or even, I want closeness tonight, can we have 10 minutes together? This type of language stops the protest loop because it turns panic into a request, not a demand. And the avoidant partner's direct bid is equally important. It can sound like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need 20 minutes to reset, and I will come back at 70:30 doi. Or, I'm not shutting you out, I'm regulating, I want to talk when I'm calmer. Or, I care about this, my system is overloaded. Can we pause and return to it tonight? This changes everything because it transforms withdrawal into responsible space. Notice something powerful here. Both bids include two ingredients: ownership of the feeling and clarity of the need. Not, you're making me feel trapped, but I'm feeling overwhelmed. Not, you don't care, but I'm feeling scared and I need reassurance. This is the adult version of attachment. It stops turning your partner into the villain and starts turning both of you into teammates against the cycle. The most overlooked part of this keynote is that direct bids must replace not just big reactions but small toxic habits. The anxious partner may need to stop using tests. The silent expectation that your partner should read your fear without you naming it. The avoidant partner may need to stop using passive distance, the habit of disappearing and assuming your partner should understand you'll return eventually. Both habits create instability. Direct bids create predictability. So when you feel the urge to protest, pause and translate. Ask yourself, what is my fear asking for? Is it reassurance, clarity, closeness, predictability, or space? Then say that plainly. If you're anxious, you might say, I'm not asking for a long talk right now. I just need a quick reminder that you're here. Or, can we schedule a check-in tonight so my mind can relax? This is how you protect your dignity while still honoring your need. You're not begging. You're communicating. If you're avoidant, you might say, I'm not rejecting you, I'm overloaded. Or, I need space, but I don't want you to feel abandoned. I'll message you at 8. That single promise of return can soften months of anxious fear if you keep honoring it. This keynote is about turning love from a battlefield into a safe negotiation. It is about ending the age-old misunderstanding where the anxious partner thinks, if I don't push, I'll be forgotten. And the avoidant partner thinks, if I don't shut down, I'll be trapped. Direct bids teach a new truth. You can ask for closeness without panic, and you can ask for space without cruelty. Because when protest dies, intimacy can finally breathe. When bids become normal, safety becomes the new default. And the relationship stops feeling like a war between two fears and starts feeling like two people learning how to love each other in a language that heals. Ladies and gentlemen, the secure blueprint is not a romantic fantasy. It's a daily system that protects two very different nervous systems from turning love into a war. Because the anxious-avoidant relationship doesn't collapse only from big fights, it collapses from the slow exhaustion of uncertainty. One partner becomes the pursuer of safety. The other becomes the protector of space, and without structure, both people start interpreting love through fear instead of trust. So here's the truth your audience needs to hear clearly. You don't fix push-pull by promising to try harder. You fix it by installing micro-consistency, practicing self-regulation outside the relationship, and learning the difference between boundaries and walls. This is not dramatic. It's powerful because it's repeatable. It turns chaos into rhythm. It turns heartbreak into repair. Micro-consistency is the medicine most couples underestimate. The anxious partner doesn't need grand gestures every week. They need predictable signals that the bond isn't at risk every time real life gets stressful. A good morning message that doesn't disappear for days. A dependable weekly check-in. A clear plan for the next time you'll see each other. A simple, "I'm busy today, but I'm thinking of you." These small things are not too much. They are the basic scaffolding of safety. They calm the anxious system before it spirals, and they reduce the avoidance fear of being pulled into constant emotional emergencies. And here's the surprising part. Micro-consistency also helps the avoidant, because when the relationship has a stable rhythm, they don't feel ambushed by sudden emotional intensity. They know what's expected. They know the connection doesn't require a heroic performance every time the anxious partner feels insecure. Consistency removes the feeling of unpredictability that avoidants often interpret as pressure. The next pillar is self-regulation outside the relationship, and this is where many couples either mature or repeat the same cycles forever. The anxious partner must stop making the avoidant the sole regulator of their self-worth. That doesn't mean you stop needing reassurance. It means reassurance is no longer your oxygen tank. You build your own emotional cross-training. You ground your body, nourish your identity, expand your life, and practice calming your mind without needing immediate confirmation that you're safe. Because if your partner becomes your only stability, love starts feeling like a job they can never complete. And the avoidant partner must stop making distance their only method of regulation. Space is healthy when it's communicated and timed. But disappearing, shutting down, or going cold as your primary coping tool is not neutrality. It's emotional abandonment from the anxious partner's perspective. So avoidants need emotional literacy skills, naming feelings instead of hiding behind logic, learning to say "I'm overloaded" instead of silently vanishing. Practicing reassurance in short, simple forms that don't feel like surrendering autonomy. These are not personality changes, they're capacity upgrades. Now we come to a crucial distinction that changes the entire atmosphere of the relationship. Boundaries are not walls. A boundary is a loving line that protects both of you. A wall is an emotional shutdown that punishes intimacy. A boundary says, "I care about you, and I need X to feel safe." A wall says, "I'm overwhelmed." So you get nothing. The avoidant partner must learn to lower walls and keep boundaries. The anxious partner must learn to respect boundaries without turning them into abandonment narratives. This is where the anxious partner's growth becomes beautiful. You learn that not every pause is rejection. You learn to wait with dignity when a return time is clear. You learn that your need for closeness can be expressed without panic. You stop using protest behaviors as a substitute for direct truth. You become someone who can say, "I'm feeling insecure, can we reconnect tonight?" instead of flooding the moment with fear. And this is where the avoidant partner's growth becomes equally powerful. You learn that reassurance is not captivity. You learn that a few steady words can prevent a spiral that would otherwise push you both into the old pattern. You become someone who can say, "I need 30 minutes, and I will be back at 8. And then you honor it like a promise. That one behavior rebuilds trust faster than 100 emotional speeches. The secure blueprint also requires one shared decision that both partners must take seriously. You are not allowed to weaponize your attachment style. An anxious partner cannot use intensity as control. An avoidant partner cannot use distance as dominance. The moment either of you turns fear into power, the relationship stops being a sanctuary and becomes a battlefield. So the real formula of secure love is simple and profound. Predictable reassurance for the anxious system, predictable autonomy for the avoidant system, and a shared repair culture that treats conflict as something you both manage with skill, not something you survive with pain. This is how you stop the push-pull. You stop expecting a single conversation to rewrite years of nervous system wiring. You stop waiting for chemistry to magically become safety. You build a relationship that functions like a calm, reliable home instead of a thrilling emotional storm. And when that blueprint becomes your new normal, you finally experience what most anxious, avoidant couples secretly want all along. A love where closeness doesn't suffocate, space doesn't terrify, and both hearts can rest without fearing the next wave.